So, Cino, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks. Thank you, Lars. You hear me? Okay. Thank you so much. I'm very honored to be here. Also, Zucchi is a myth in Italy, and also we are in a quite exceptional location. I remember many years ago going to Copenhagen, see the church by John Hudson. I never been to actually the upper house. But speaking with Rafael Moneo, we were speaking the other day that when he was young, I asked him, is it a urban legend or not that you draw all the geometry of it? And he actually did. Rafael Moneo is a very important Madrid architect. So I think the European dimension is really interesting. I will talk about it later. You know, this feeling of closeness and also difference at the same time with the landscape. But so I will basically, I think an architect should mostly express itself with his work. You know, it's not. And you know, today people are very uncertain about the future. They always ask, "Oh, tell us, Zucchi, tell us, Stefano Bero, what will it be the future?" And you know, David Bowie said we can be heroes just for one day, and maybe we can be gurus just for one day, because everybody seems to want the guru. You always start from climate change, this and that. I mean, sometimes the architects, they tend to enlarge the problem to a point where you don't know if you can get back to the detail. So everybody has theories. So I thought also I needed a theory, and I invented this name, which will be clear later. Where do I point? I have to switch it on.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. Okay. So, even animals learn from their mistakes. I think we mostly learn from our mistakes. But what humans have, they can also write down things. And today on Wikipedia, you can learn how to do a bomb, you can learn about, Borromini, whatever. I mean, it's the first generation who really has the entire human knowledge, and it actually is quite accurate. I give $40 to Wikipedia every year, but you have manuals for anything in a way. This is, some kind of manuals, feminine psychology, the art of reasoning, how to educate your kids, the art of being a man, the user costumes of a high society, hygiene, whatever. You will find somebody writing or teaching you to do. So in a way, like little kids, we are trying to put things together, and the other side, we try to learn from the experience of others. But in the old times where you went to school, you had some kind of patrimony of the first year you would draw a Doric capital, then you would draw a Ionic capital, then you would draw a Corinthian capital. Fourth year you can say, okay, start you expressing yourself. Today to a student you ask the concept, every student, what's your concept? So the problem is, can we still learn a technique or a job, or the problem is not so much learning a technique, but why using that technique? I think, I also teach at university, the problem seems to be more complex. It's not just teaching a craftsmanship to people, but understanding in a complex society how to dialogue, but also what is the right instrument to use. In the old times, you relied on the knowledge of your grandfather who told you in agricultural times when is the time to plow, where the time to things. I mean, the agricultural society is based on past experience. The old people had authority. But I think there was a moment somewhere at the turn of the last century where cities would get bigger, we had railways, and architects felt that to deal with the problem of the new society, the scale of the city, going from the scale of the city to the metropolis and so on, it was no more sufficient to go to look what was there. So in a way, they went all the other way. They eradicated the memory of things, the way we do a glass, something, and they tried to give a scientific status to the process of architecture, in a way, blanking out form and saying that the form is the end of the process. So in this sort of, I make a caricature, of course, this sort of functionalist thought. You do have inputs, data, then you have some kind of method with a capital M, which is a black box, and the form comes out. This is sort of the input-output model of functionalism. So to do a school, you count the number of children, you see the course of the sun, you analyze the strength of material, you see the budget, you see the sun orientation. And then, putting all that, and you process that with a good method, with a big M, the end is the form, not beginning. This input-output is something we know everywhere. It's a relationship between an act and another variable. In this case, the more you press on the pedal of your car, the faster you go, and then when you see the police, you can take it out. So this is a very simple input-output process. But then you have cases where time is implied. So between the input and the output, you have some kind of time lapse. In this case, if you want to make a kid, or you don't want to make a kid like these people, this actually I found, my grandfather was a big Marxist. He was invited by Mao Zedong, and when he died, among all the books on Marx, I found 100 Positions of Love. So this was a love manual of my grandfather hidden underneath the philosophy books. But this is the pattern of the Japanese population right after the war. So a lot of people, very young people, and almost none at 8 years old. This is the present, and this is late. So if we do a baby today, we change the population, say, distribution, but not right away. So many processes, especially in the city, it takes time to develop. The time factor, sometimes is quite relevant. In this case, this is a famous, Vittorio Sgarbi is a famous, I don't know, call it politician or some this kind of spectacle. He's opening up one building I did, but today, the people who inaugurate buildings, politicians, are the one who comes after. So, especially in infrastructure, if you do a subway line, it takes some time. So, there's a time of the politics, but also a time of the city, which sometimes it's even longer. So, if we try to understand this input-output model, let's for a moment say we accept it. So, architecture is a discipline, some kind of cranking, some things that you have to put something in and you take something out. Which are the inputs? I think, again, making caricatures, you have three popular images of the architect. One is the classical one. This is Palladio. When Palladio was young, he went to Rome, and these are hand drawing by Palladio measuring the Roman monuments. And then when he needs to do a house, like the Rotonda, he makes, a little bit looks like a temple more or less than a house. But what I mean, the architect distinguished himself by, in this case, classical culture, so he was putting together technique and classicism. So this is the classical architect. Then today, I think the thing split in two. This is Carlo Mollino, a Torino architect. He did this quite famous discotheque, but he also designed this chair. He was a sort of pornographer. So at each Christmas, he would send, you have all these Polaroids by Pollino, who are big collectors. So the idea that the architect is someone who sees the clouds. One day, I met Bernard Schum in Milano with some of his students, and he said, Cino Zucchi, today you have only two kinds of architects. The one who, the signature architects go, and he went like this, and then the production architects who put the elevators in. The Maxi in Rome, it's a bit like that. I also did a competition for the Maxi, I remember, many years ago, when Zah did one, and then, then you see the projects, and then it's the same projects with many more elevators, because some production architect puts the elevators. But this is one way we would think of the popular thinking on the newspapers, the architects, and the other one is Jean Prouvé with the teamwork, and the Europe was destroyed, so you need a lot of prefabricated houses for the houseless people. So the architect as technician. Many times, I did a competition together with Norman Foster and Frank Gehry, we were a team, and in a way they represent Norman Foster, the one who the shape is given by the wind gallery, and Frank Gehry, you also have this sort of Simpson joke about crushing things and things. They're the two poles of what we think an architect should be today. And then about method. Etienne Louis Duran, it was the typical néoclassiciste, and my French is not very good. Marcher à suivre dans la composition d'un projet quelconque. Steps to follow in the composition of any project. Number one, you put the main axis. Number two, you put the secondary axis. Number three, you trace the walls. Number four, you put the columns. Number five, hop. In these things, you have a Lego, which is classical architecture. You have the Pantheon, the Terme di Traiano, but the Pantheon is just one single building. This is like a Lego, okay? So if you learn a method, in this case, a Beaux-Arts method, you could get there, you know, like to draw a cat. You do a round, you do this and then hop the cat. So this is the step-by-step method. Then today, or in the 80s, this is from Christophe Alexandre and also on the Synthesis of Form, which is a marvelous book, by the way. I would ask the young people should learn it because very, very deep. But half of the book is full of formulas, you know. And if you go today on internet and you type method, design method, you know, as you have thousands of diets, you know, the grapefruit diet, the vegan diet, whatever, this is everybody's teaching you a way to do. So everybody has a way to teach, you know, like as many books. So methodology as something where you decide the process. So today, more and more the people do not know what is final quality. We substitute process for quality. So if the process is correct, then the final quality must be good. I spent 80, 90, 95% of my time checking BIM things, you know, doing this and that, printing things. I mean, the bureaucracy even in our job, you know, people think we're artists, but we spend a lot of times, I think, in checklist. This start from zero model, in a way, it was also applied to the city. This is Victor Gruen City. This is actually the cover of a book my father would, I'm from 55, so I was 9 years old, and he brought me back from New York. A book is called The World of the Future. I was convinced that I would live in this world, like the Jetsons, with a little helicopter. But I think this was a big model from the General Motors of the future city. This also represents the way functionalism thought about the city. So, in a way, you divide it in function, the function of living, the function of working, the function of getting together, the function of moving, the function of a theater. You respond with an object to all this, and then you put it all back together. So it's first analytical, a sort of an anatomy, and then the physiology put it together. Few actual cities were designed this way. You have the famous model of Brodacre City by Frank Lloyd Wright, but this was never been done. But this is a model I found in the City Hall of Chandigarh in Punjab, because 3-4 years ago I was called for lectures, and this was, I took it from the major things. Chandigarh has a very complex story. It was planned by Le Corbusier. Each of these is called the sector 16, sector 17. So you can say, where do we go partying tonight? Oh, let's go partying in sector 9, you know, because they have good dope there, I don't know, whatever. So, you know, and this is the capital, famous capital. So they talk about my street when people, and all the roads have names like V1, V2. So take the V1 road, you feel a little bit like in a Star Trek movie when people talk. It actually works very well. This image, which is the capital by Le Corbusier, has the parliament. It has these are the functionaries, I mean, like the bureaucracy, and this is the tribunal. And it had a gigantic esplanade, I would say, with almost this is the famous open hand and all this. This is a Tower of Shadows. But this image, our generation studied it many times. Then you go there, and to enter, this is the building you saw this, right? You have a security check, and in the middle of this big space, you do have a barbed wire, because they had some terrorist attacks, so you can't get to the buildings only from the sides. So the big esplanade, apart from some kind of, I think Le Corbusier did not understand the climate of Punjab, because in the summer you have 50 degrees and it's very, very damp. So you have this sort of Le Corbusier, even quite seductive pieces in everyday life. The city has, he did all this famous brise soleil, but then it's very damp, so everybody put air conditioning. So it's interesting to see a city which was planned in the modern, and actually in some cases works very well. For example, in India, the hello traffic, this works very well in some ways. It has also good environmental quality, but so the aesthetics of Le Corbusier, which are still planned in the master plan. So the master plan says how you should, in a way, aesthetically build with this sort of post and beam, is after 50 years of air conditioning, painting, like that. It's very interesting to see how this idea developed in time. So today we are in a more interactive society somehow, and we could try to get the model better with the notion of feedback. Mathematically, you would say there's an input, there's a process, an algorithm, and an output, but then the output goes back, and through evolve that can get it worse or better, you regulate the input. This is typical for thermostats. If this gets hot to 26 degrees, then something happens, it stops. So it's an interactive, where the measuring of things. We know many feedback systems. One is the tail of a plane. A plane flies. The reason why the plane is shaped this way, because if you go this, you get more pressure of the air here, and this will turn in a couple. So it will stabilize the plane. So this is, a self-balancing input-output. And when we talk about feedback in time, my voice gets re-recorded here, and if you don't get it right, you could really go in like this. So some feedback processes are unbalancing rather than balancing. But then also in this process you could have time. And this is where the campsite sour theory comes from. In a way, if we go in a campsite and we really want to take a shower, you go in, you turn the hot water, and for a while it's really cold because it takes some while for the water to run in. Then you turn, and then it gets too hot because you was not patient enough. So you got hot, and then you turn the cold, and then it gets too cold. So you go on with this process somehow until you get it right, and you have the mathematics. In a way, you have to be patient. You don't have to oversteer. This is the mathematics of this time delay. I will not go into the deep mathematics of it because it will take 3/4 of an hour, believe me, the Nyquist diagram. Okay? But the city is a feedback system. When in Italy they announce bad weather, from some secret tunnels, some Pakistani people come out to sell the umbrellas and things like that. There's some secret. Then when they announce there's some sort of soccer game, also some other secret tunnels, they sell all the scarves like this. So you could think of the city as a very fast self-adapting system. Some things are longer. My wife quit smoking, and now she smokes this vapo, stupid, all night she goes, here in the cinema she goes like this. And this is the most famous oncologist in Milano, Veronesi, and he says the electronic cigarette is absolutely, trouble-free. In a way, his announcement can break or not a whole economy system where all these are pop-up stores of electronic cigarettes, which implies architects, designers, economy. So, can we think of a city as a continuously adapting organism? I think the novelty since the first modern age is that the big modern age wanted to do what is called the standard. You had one kind of car, one kind of toothbrush, the object for everybody, the perfect watch like this. So the idea there was a typical man with a typical wife with typical kids, and you have to do the typical apartment and they will live well. Then Benetton invented, in Italy it's called tinto in filo, because he died in truck. Basically, he invented that you would do all things white, you put some samples in the store. If everybody wants it pink, then you don't dye the thread before weaving it, but after, so you can respond. So all is based on a feedback system. Then, so we had the typical man, and now we rediscover you have different characters of people. But commercialism, in a way, today with the big data, I don't want to go into the big data, but the other day, you fear, oh, hi, Cino, I'm John from Mahabis. I saw you put in your cart these shoes. Oh, I'm not from Milano, but I really can shoe. Oh, hi, can you come back? It's an algorithm who talks to you like it's a friend. It's a friend. It's just an algorithm who picks up Milano like that. So today, this idea of multiple choice, everybody can make your own choice, becomes obsessive. But actually, we are very categorized by commercialism. Somebody knows everything about us. So, one element of this modernistic thing was that form comes at the end. So, you don't have prejudice. The most frequent phrase I heard in my colleagues' lectures of the last 20 years, they go like this: I'm not interested in forms, I'm interested in strategies. They go like that, they go, I'm interested in strategies. Like form is poo-poo, it's like saying shit, But can we have another model where we have mirror neurons and ideas propagate as viruses? This idea that repetition, in a way, we are imitative animals. So I don't believe every time you design, you start from nothing. I think this postulate of modernism is not really the way we do things. Can we talk about an epidemiology of representation, like Dan Sperber? The contagious ideas. So, gossip and passaparola, this is called Chinese whispers in America. So, we think we're unique, but there's 12 Cino, 12, these are, it's called Exactitudes. It's a fantastic book. Some people, a Dutch guy with some people, they go around in the streets and they pick up people, they bring them there. This is Onti Never Ever in Rotterdam, Donna de Caffeinata, like this, in Milano. This volunteers, Cappuccino Girls, the Poke Monsters, intellectuals. These are the kind of people who come out of the film and they explain the film to the girlfriend. I hate these men who explain the film, the meaning of the life into the girlfriend. And these are fantastic. I think these are really fantastic. They're all like that. So we think we're original, but there's at least 12 of us. Everybody wants to be original, but So these are pictures of houses I took from my Vespa going to the university. This is the typical boring apartment building in Milano going to that. It's in a way the backdrop of my life, something. And it's interesting. Can we make series of these buildings? I think my grandmother actually lived there. So each one has a little dog. They have they have their own little things, they have their shoes, they put up all their shoes like this. So, in a way, a facade is a mediator between the 1,000 single existences we have and the city as a collective artifact. This idea of repetition, it's interesting. This is cases of Roman coins, which were in barbarian times, they were repeated, and because the coin was an important tool to exchange. So this imitated that, and this imitated that, and this imitated that, but the end one forgot the original figure, it became abstract. So this repetition is also a form of change. Can we look at human artifacts as you will look in also in natural history? This is the famous Bernard Becker photographers who take pictures of things we do, an engineer, do it in families of things. So, can we make some kind of evolutionary model of, the telefonini or guitars? But in the first evolutionary model, this is the ancient horse, and then way back to the horse. We had the idea there was a line, but in reality, studying, we understand more and more broken lines are needed. So, for example, Neanderthal men, we have a list. My son was saying, Homo erectus, Papa, it is extinct. We are from here. And so, in reality, there's a man already, branches of what we call men today were dead ends. So we're here, sapiens, but Neanderthal men, almost we have, there's very little blood. It's a mystery why they disappeared. So failure is fundamental to evolution. There's not a line, but so this is the original sketch by Charles Darwin. It's not a line, it's a bush. And you know, I don't know who invented keep calm and carry on, but why certain things got viral, I would say. This is great. You know, I think he would have become the then make some of them survive. This is actually pictures of models of, we were doing an office building competition of 3 buildings, and we'll not explain it, but I just pictured the table, and then I tried to put all my sketches, which were disordering on the table, to try to find if was some linear evolution, and I think the end scheme is this, but you have a lot of died out, like this one, which was interesting, and this is the final model represented. So, you know, Samuel Beckett said, try again, fail better. Can we acquaint for failure as a fundamental method of design? The question is, do you fail on your drawing table or you fail on your building? Because that's another question. Many cathedrals fell to understand the Gothic structure is quite daring. You know how many fell down? I'm almost finished with this first part. I wanted to talk a little bit about the issue of time. This is a Piranesi engraving, and this is actually a tomb on the Appia Antica in Rome, which was, he was a little bit romanticizing it. But, you know, these are pictures of American shopping centers, which are perfect machines, and after they have been abandoned. You know, my problem is the perfect modern machine, which is a shopping center, is not so easy to reuse. How come Diocletian's palace in Split, he was his mausoleum, works perfectly as a Starbucks cafe? I know it's not Starbucks, but just that kind of thing, and not the shopping center. That's a mystery. And this is the typical little town in Italy with the church, the porticos, and in Lombardy, the Sikh, you know, the Indian Sikh is a sect, they're very good in cattle, so there's a very big Sikh community, and this is the yearly feast of the Sikh. So a perfect Italian provincial square, it is a very good container for the Sikh. So I don't think we should mechanize too much the relationship between behavior and design. We have in Milano full of courtyards. This was the whole hospital, and this was the Jesuit college. Now, this became one of the main events. When you come to Milano, you go to the courtyard, and this is the Brera Academy, the art school. The reason why these courtyards survive, maybe because they're pretty, but also because they have some kind of generic space. It's not specific. They're individuals, but also they're open to new uses, which is not happening to functional buildings. In 1964, Christopher Alexander wrote an essay called A City is Not a Tree. He was criticizing the tree scheme as something, as a topological scheme, which was too hierarchical. Single dwellings which become neighborhood units, who become villages and new towns, a little bit like the one you see by Victor Gruen. But then it's true that if, for example, if this is an electrical system, if some kind of accident becomes here, all this being cut off. We have 2 kidneys and 2 eyes, so we can sell a kidney, you know, or break it. In a way, redundancy is important. Today also there's another fashion world is, robustness. I don't want to use resilience because, I've been using it for 20 years because I studied at MIT, and the last 2 years, no more resilience because this the epidemiology of terms. Actually, it's a very good word, but I will not use it because it's getting too much. But he was saying that, in the real city, each node is connected by more than one connection. Actually, it's a more complex structure. It's not hierarchical. It's not branching off, but has more complex relationship. Today, all the magazines are filled with these images, which are very sexy, you know. I think they try to put together density with nature, which is the big problem of today. I think these are very interesting, but they're not cities. I don't think these things will behave in 30 years as cities. I'm curious to see, you know. And can we say, without too much romanticism, that a Saturday afternoon in Place de Vos in Paris tell us that the European cities has in its own genes a way to put together good urbanity and good environmental quality without going on this sort of, you know, putting trees all over the rooftops. You know, we have the crescents of Bath. We have this marvelous Aix-en-Provence. In a way, it's a cathedral of trees. You know, the main road. We have Prato della Valle. I think maybe should we always oppose the good nature against the evil man? I'm not that sure about it. Last of this 1/10 of my lecture, the future, you know, what will be the future? Every futurology is representing the future, but it's also representing its age. In a way, the future was a suburban American, this is the typical car with wings, or you had balloons instead of planes. And this is 55, actually I'm born in 55. The House of the Future by Ellison and Peter Smithson. They designed the house, but also they had people, you know, with these pants with shoes, you know, plastic finished mold, trolley warm compartment infrared, table rises from floor. And this is the famous Futuro house by Matti Surone. He was a Finnish person. You know, you could have a nice party, the future of a barbecue like that. But that's the way it ended up. All this food, you know, today I went to Japan, you have this fashion of metabolist architecture, the capsule hotel kind of thing. But I was really sure, how come we don't live here? I was convinced as a kid that I would live in the future here, but I live in a very nice old house, you know, and this makes me think, you know. I know. Okay, then in '72, a group from MIT team tried to do an algorithm, I mean a system about the, you know, the crisis. It was the first call about the limits to growth, you know. This was the algorithm they used, and they really said the crisis would be just right after the year 2000. What is interesting, now this is actually, when I read that, I got so scared. This is Cino Zucchi, Artificial Intelligence, course 77. This is, I could write in Lisp. No, so I ran to MIT to say, let's save the world. But after 30 years, somebody say, hey, we did this forecast 30 years ago, and in a way, let's go see if it really went up. So this, they relaunched the model, and they saw the way it would have gone and the way it really went. It was not so different, but we have to upgrade. Many times with all these models, we believe in them, but then we don't update them. Today, actually, we do have incredible, you know, just-in-time, this sort of smart city thing. These are the selfies. I think it's Paris. The red is where the tourists are, and the blue is where the normal people are. You know, Milano is one of the most polluted areas. You're sort of a bit not so bad. And, you know, today I was looking if, you know, Copenhagen, these are all the plane flying over Pianura Padana now. So in this sort of, we do have instruments of forecast which are much more sophisticated. So will they be able to tell us what the future will be? What will be the future? Here I'm designing a faucet because on the beach I found an old girlfriend of mine when I was 14 years old, and she was married. She married a big, they do faucets, so they commissioned me, her husband, he commissioned me. So do we control, an architect is not controlling the world, is, you know, I'm not playing, I mean, it's not, we don't own our means of production. So we have ideals, we have values as everybody, but we will not the rulers of the world. And after Cino Zucchi said all this fantastic thing, okay, Cino Zucchi, tell us how to be happy, tell us how to save the world. now erase everything I said up to now, and now I'm gonna say very mediocre things I do every day. So we all live in a split brain thing. But so what I just show projects now, and I try just to say, you know, this issue of time to me, of the slowness of architecture. The title was In Praise of a Just Out of Time Architecture. We live in cities which are not built by us. You know, if the city would be an iPhone, we would destroy it every 30 years and throw it away. So we are in a machine, we're continuously fixing the machine of the city, we cannot throw it away. I mean, you had experiments, but, you know. So these are, is there strategies related to the delay, this delay? Then one could be just be very quick, shorten the time between design and realization. So this was a competition in Lugano. Lugano is in Switzerland. I will not speak about every project because it really would take 10 hours. But there was a new gallery and they planned a master plan. So this, the new gallery under the mountain, this will become the new entrance of the small city. It's in Switzerland. So we won the competition for this master plan. But then in our project, it was a big team, we designed also this sort of path connecting this to this, because the roundabout had to be on the river, because for safety reasons you had to have 200 meters from the exit of the tunnel to that. So the traffic imposed this on the river, but we said it's not very nice to have a roundabout on the river, so let's make a path of it. Then the people from we won this competition, which was a master plan competition, they said, hey, if you transform that into a sound barrier, we could pay for it. They sort of like this thing. So this is the same idea with these sound barriers. And then they did the tunnel, but the whole thing will be completed in 10 years, but the tunnel is there. So they called me up and said, Cino, Zucchi, hey, we have this sort of service gallery, still there, but we have the trucks here, can you hide it in some way? So they asked me to do a temporary project with almost no money, installation, of hiding up the roadworks. So in the end, this thing will go here. But this is a temporary exit. So this project will last 5 years. We designed this sort of laminated wood. We put some PVC tubes. So it's very low-tech and sort of sophisticated somehow geometry. This is getting out of the tunnel. I knew that 1 millimeter difference here would become into 3-4 centimeters. These are 11 meters high, so it's quite high. So I accepted a bit of irregularity because this is what was needed without having structure. So it looks a little bit miraculous because it's just, you know, it's very flexible. It also, if the wood deforms a bit, but I sort of like it, which is not so perfect. So these were temporary or just-in-time projects. I go quickly. This is Pedrali. They do quite good, actually. They're quite famous abroad, near Bergamo. So it's a factory of chair, mostly of design, in the middle of the countryside. And they needed an automated warehouse here. This is 10 meters high, but the mechanics of the automated warehouse needs 30 meters. So they were afraid that the city had a problem of visual impact. They called me up and said, so this is the interior. It's like no light, it's just a robot going in, it's very sophisticated, but the 28 meters is given by the efficiency of the machine. It has no structure. The scaffolding holds up the roof, so it's not a building, it's a big machine, and they asked me to wrap it around in a way to hide it, you know. Was very, so this aluminum is actually the one, the real one, the box, and I just added up these blades, which have a particularity. On one side, they're just aluminum color. On the other side, they have 3 shades of green. And in some moments, when the sky gets a bit of gray, they really hide a bit. So this is the shiny side, and that's the color side. The only place where the side you could see the interior is like I pulled up. So these are the pellets, are really the scaffoldings. And it changes very much with the light. What is sort of miraculous is this. This is a photo of the facade looking from the side, which is just aluminum color, say 10 o'clock in the morning. This is exactly the same facade, so it's not the other side 3 hours later, because the sun hits the color and bounces back. So this is not the color, it's the reflection of the other side, and it looks like a butterfly. And everybody stops there. In a way, everybody was very afraid of this big box, and now it became the landmark. You know, like everybody, you know, the old guys from the city come there because it's like a sundial in a way. This is just the connection with the existing, and you have a path that you can visit it all. Now, Pedrali is very interesting. So again, projects that take 3-4 months since you design them to the time of the things. He was talking about, you know, this Biennale in 2014, I think. Biennale works this way. You have the Biennale nominating one curator, one single. You know, you had Aravena, you had the Grafton Architects, I now remember. So, and this year was Rem Koolhaas, but the national pavilions do not depend from that. They depend from the Ministry of Cultures. So they're quite independent. So they did a political mess in Italy, and this opened it up in, I think it was like June or May even. And in December, the Italian Ministry of Culture calls me up and said, Cino, Zucchi, you want to do the Biennale? I say, come on, it's 5 months. And also you have to find the sponsors because they have no money. How can I do it? Oh, no. And then, okay, yes. Because what? So I had to do something really quick. Rem Koolhaas gave a very interesting suggestion to the foreign pavilions. He said the theme was a suggestion, okay, absorbing modernity 1914-2014, how each country related to modernity. I had to think really fast, and I said, okay, so I will do a first part, which is not about contemporaneity, in a way it's an historical part, and then I said, okay, how Italy related to modernity. And this was related more to the contemporary landscape, and this was just, we also had the garden. And I call it grafting, because I said, in a way, Italy had a big modern period, but the territory of Italy so overlaid with Romans like that always you had to deal with something which came before. The presence of the past was important, so you don't have ever flat landscape, even here. So I said, grafting is a metaphor of how Italian modernists have to graft on something existent. We did a portal, which was temporary. We call it archimbuto. It's something between an arch and a funnel, like archifunnel. This is actually from the 1500s, it's the Arsenale. And then they liked it, they actually left it on. So if you go there, it's still on, even if it was a temporary exhibition. And this was like a history book talking about cases of that, you know, people building domes on top of existing things, and we know. This was the Campidoglio by Michelangelo before Michelangelo. So Michelangelo did not build it, he redo the facade, and this was a 90 degrees angle, so this is the project by Michelangelo. So what you see new actually is always redoing. And then I went to the ministry to say, hey, I'm from Milano, if I do everything about Italy, modernity, then I forget Sardinia, forget Campobasso, you know, I get crazy. Can I do the first part only in Milano as a lab of the modern, Milano? Because Milano was the most modern city. So I will not go through the content of this, just to say that this was designing the show while we were designing also the exhibition. Sometimes the curator and the stage designer is not the same. In this case, we had so little time, we did all, so I designed both. But this is an interesting drawing, it was exposed. Milano was heavily bombed during the war, like Rotterdam or Dresden, but when they reconstructed it, they decided to keep somehow the lines of the street, instead of reconstructing in, you know, the modernist plan. Rotterdam is all ta-ta-ta-ta like that. And so the white buildings are the new buildings, and the gray are the existing ones. So this is actually, you see, this building, this is a famous Moretti, this is Caccia Dominioni, like this is a famous Torre Velasquez, a tower in the middle of the city, but that's an old hospital. So see, the center of Milano is a big patchwork of brick tile, terracotta things, roofs, and modern building, retaining the sphere. Many schools from Northern Europe come to Milano now to see this sort of gentle modernism we also try to adapt. Then we had a show about the theme of the urban skyscraper, high building. This was the second section. This was the installation. This was called Life Adapts to Spaces Which Adapt to Life. We commissioned, everybody could send a video about some Italian space and the way people behave. It was about space and society, and this was the outside space. Okay. Now, then, last year, 2018, Grafton Architects, which were two Irish women, called me up and said, Cino Zucchi, your work interests us. You want to come to the Biennale? You have two alternatives. Either show your work, but then you showed us, when we came to Milano many years ago, this very unknown architect called Cacciadomignoni. He just died. And so some architects, we try to relate it some all. So do you want to reread the work of the Cacciadomignoni? I said, yes. Actually, this is Cacciadomignoni, 100 years old. It's 100th birthday, and this is me. So now he died, he's 102. He's a totally unknown outside of Italy. And then I did an exposition about this sort of unknown Italian architect who's becoming fashionable in all Europe now. And I will not go through it. So he did a lot of houses. Some of them are really modernist, and some of them are almost historicist. Very strange figure, almost eclecticism. And then I did this big head, like a temple, and you would go in. I found this old lamp of Caccia, actually, and I just concentrated on one house, and we did models from 1 to 5,000 to 1 to 500, and 1 to 50, and this is 1 to 5. This is a 3-hinge door. It's like a piano sequenza, a sequence. I will not go through again. But we did these very, very big models of this crazy house, which is inserted in the center of Milano. And look at the drawings, it does not have one straight line. It's very strange house. So these are, say, just-in-time design. Then, again, should we adopt more sophisticated modeling instruments? Today we talk about the BIM. The BIM can totally predict exactly how each tube will go. So it's a way of pre-enacting the whole process. It's not the only property of BIM because it's a database, but you could simulate the whole construction before. So designing, again, quite fast. We won this competition for the Saleva building in Bolzano. They do jackets, sports jackets. I will not get again through. We tried to plan the things while we were not designing the whole thing until the last time. So more than designing every detail, we generated some kind of in a way, ways of behaving, how you would join, this whole thing about that. It's in a way the construction was really, really fast. Again, here also we had a big box with this automatic magazine. This has the very cheap building. This is on the highway. And we have the highest climbing hall. It's 25 meters and open to the south. Last night I was having dinner with a friend of my daughter, and she's a climber. And she started talking about the bull drag, that, Cino, you did the Saleva, is the best. I mean, this really became the benchmark for contemporary climbing halls, because you cannot, this is Messner opening it, because you also use magnesium, to climb up, but then it gives bad to your eyes. So it's like an open air. This is the youngest climber in Italy. And then basically it's an office building, very ecological. We decided to go, in the summer Bolzano is near the mountains, but it's quite hot, to go 26 degrees, because it's useless to go in the summer to 21, 22, because everybody is in a light jacket. And it works, and this reduces like 30% the energy. This is the entrance to the trucks. We have all the roof is solar panels, so we produce more energy than what is needed. We give it to a city, and then this camouflage. This is the typical industrial building. We are on the edge of the industrial zone of Bolzano, through the mountains, and here you have fields. And I like this picture because it's like a lizard camouflaging in the... It's really interesting because when we decided the color, the guy said, oh, but this blue is the color of the 2002-2003 collection. I said, okay, I do a landmark building, but this is for the city. And what is interesting that this is not green, it's blue, because when you have, like in Leonardo da Vinci's painting, he called it a perspective, you have a little bit fog, everything becomes blue. So I didn't imitate the green, I imitate the thickness of the air. So it's both a camouflage and a landmark, and a brand building. Marathon, okay. Helsinki, we won, it's not a competition, some kind of consulting for a quite important area in Helsinki. There was this bridge, say suburban station with high accessibility, a housing quarter and a little bit more like a thing. But so this was the bridge, the station was like that. And they asked us to, in a way, plan a very, very dense quarter in between the infrastructure. So this is going up the level, okay, this is the horizon, and this on the level of the city, this is the existing bridge, this is the atrium of the existing station, we doubled the tracks, so this goes to the center of Helsinki, and then we did this, so tower buildings here, some residence, and this is housing. I will not go into the details of it. So this was the original plan, and you see it's very difficult because this is the, we moved the street from here to go into the highway here. That's a sports hall, the TV, the Finnish TV somewhere there, and so on. And then the Nokia did not understand the smartphone question. We all had the Nokia thing 10 years ago, and I don't know who has a Nokia today. We all have, iPhones or Samsung, maybe Huawei. And then there was a sort of a drop. So this was the original plan, and the original plan, all this was, say, like offices. And then they called us back, this was for the city, to say, why don't you make a detailed plan of this with higher tower, but putting housing on top and offices on the bottom. So this is a second round, where the red is housing and the bottom is offices, with a lot of free spaces in between. Every time I go to Helsinki, I bring back Joanna Gulix, and my wife is very proud of these bags I bring. And this was a master plan, but then they said they were very afraid of going high because they understood the touch. Helsinki does not really have tower, so said, Cino Zucchi, can you do a sample design to see that we want towers, but they have to be pretty, because they built up some quite ugly tower. I said, I cannot prescribe in a master plan a pretty tower. I mean, it's a job of the architect. But we had to show that could have been done. This was a collage. This is the more detailed master plan of the tower with the base. That's the office floor, and that's the housing floor. Everybody has a sauna here. You can go out. Sauna, agree? And this was a rendering about how even a plan can have different architectures. And we said, okay, let's do sample one. Here, in these models, you don't see very much the difference, actually, because it's more detail of color. So this part is housing, this part is offices. But then when I dismantled the model to send it to Helsinki, I realized my real project was that. So I said, the open space. I said, so this was the project. The subway comes out here. And I said, they call us all the way from Italy to Italy. Why? So we are good in doing towers, Italian San Gimignano, but that's our real speciality. That's also San Gimignano, this sort of idea of a cozy space. So I thought maybe we should bring some, not just San Gimignano to Helsinki, of course, but this idea that some kind of regional speciality of Italy is being embraced by the public space, like this. Tirana, you have 1 million inhabitants more every day. Half of Tirana is in Albania. This is an axis that was not really an Italian colony, but almost a colony. It was traced by Italians. This is a station, and all this is total squatter housing. The problem with Tirana is that it's been filled in the last 10 years with all thousands of little houses, but they have no roads. So this was a very ambitious competition about doing on the area of the station the big new city forum, because they have an incredible boom to relate it to this sort of river and reservoir, sorry. But the main issue was, can you cut roads, because all this through here without damaging too much? So there was some kind of, they call it the boulevardi in Albanese. They went there, it becomes sort of natural. It relates to the river, this is the top of the mountain, but also how to cut through here and created some kind of pocket spaces. So it's very ambitious. But the problem was this, see all this fabric. So we designed some kind of sliding doors future where this existing situation, you need to cut through things, and then you leave some fabric in, and then it could be different doctor things. Of course, in a new center with the opera house, the city hall, and also some green. So this is existing boulevardi, which becomes a sort of nature. Okay. I hate renderings, but you got to do it. Then test components adapted to different situations. One day, I don't remember, the Corriere della Sera, the Milano newspaper, oh, Cino, Zucchi, everybody talk about social housing. Can you do a sketch? You know, journalists always call you Saturday afternoon, can you do a sketch? I had to do one for San Siro. The other Saturday I did a sketch for San Siro. So I said, okay, let's do a sketch. So I said, okay, you have these co-housers, like almost big communes, but you have also single people with just one son, you have quite traditional families. So there was the idea of putting together, but say everybody wants a big terrace. So to have the possibility of mixing different sort of housing types together. So this was just a sketch. See, it's like La Lettura, so a Saturday afternoon sketch. Terrace and future. But then in Milano had the Expo in 2013, and they planned a super dense cluster of towers, which were the houses for the employees of the Expo, that then would become really cheap social housing. So we collectively, the master plan was done at Citerio, a group of architects worked on it. I proposed to take away, there was one tower in the center of here. I said, please, let's take it away, this is too dense. So we put this on that to at least to create some kind of center. And each one designed a tower. This was all like done in 2 months. Actually, I designed these towers, was a collective endeavor. And they were so dense, that was so close. It's almost like a Chicago, so I call it the Blue Canyon. I said, at least let's do a slit somehow to get some light in between also, because I think it was. So this is going up. See, it's very thick. In Italy, you need to have at least one bathroom with natural ventilation. So the housing typology is totally different from the northern one. So this is going up. And you had to, during the Expo, you have to have only rooms, almost no living room, to maximize, and then you took it up. These are the elevations. And I think the problem with high-rise is that even formally, you can't just stack up things. You need to give some rhythm. So this was very cheap. The windows are small because we didn't even have money to do the parapets almost. So it's like probably the cheapest building I did. I worked with colors. And then, then this is the only one who they did not build it for the Expo because they were out of time. So one person in my studio cried for 2 days because, you know, like I mean, that'll tell us a story. But this was from yesterday. This is a picture I took my iPhone yesterday. Finally, they're building it, and this is the mock-up really done with these things. So this was not very clear there, so the colors are so don't do. So this is the first mock-up of the facade. So they built it years later. Yesterday's pictures. Then, at that time, we also designed the open space. So at the Expo time, the only thing Cino Zucchi Architetti designed is this. So it's the entrance booth. So this was Cucinella, this was a young architect. So that's our contribution to Expo. But I love this set of pictures because this was used by all the people from the Expo. It's like an experiment of how one single space is used by different people or ethnic groups, even in a temporary way. So it's a photographer who went to picture the people living there for 6 or 7 months. And it's interesting how they they use the space in their own way. You know, they cook their own meals. Some are quite clean, some are more messy, some are they stay out and smoke. I really like these pictures, okay, because it's sort of this idea of how European cities today live, also with a lot of different ethnic groups. Okay, this was an existing car museum from the 60s, and with a little budget, 900 euros a square meter. Maxi of Zadid, I was telling, is 9,000, so it's 1/10. We did the renovation and addition of this building. The black one is existing building. We covered the court, and we did this addition. So this was the building was a drive-in. You would drive in the car. There was an open court, and the entrance to the museum was here. Then we did it. The entrance here is totally changed, and we closed it. So the closed court, but we left it, and this is the addition. So it's very difficult grafting. The museum did not have any access here, only just a ramp, and you would enter here. So we opened it up there, we covered the court, and we did this addition. So in a way, we respected very much existing building, but totally changed the distribution. This is the upper floors. That's the old facade. This is a facade from the 60s, which is actually quite interesting. And this is the back, toward the Lingotto, so we did this sort of glass which wrapped around the building, and also had all the escape stairs. I go very quickly. This was the old courtyard transformed into an atrium. Okay. Then always in Torino, Lavazza coffee people, they bought this area, which is quite close to Torino, but it's a bad quarter. It was a former power plant, and they made competition, a private competition, and we won the competition for the reformation of, they bought it from the city, and they wanted to do the headquarters. So this was a totally enclosed precinct with some nice buildings and not so nice building. This was the sketch of the competition. This was the competition model. So basically it's a headquarters for 700 people. This becomes these buildings we live. It's an existing museum. This one, and also this one. This becomes the coffee museum. This becomes a public square where you could go through. And this becomes some kind of congress center. It became a school and a public plaza. So this was the competition. In the end, it went through many changes. For example, we did not do this. This became much more landscapey, but the general scheme is sort of this. The existing situation. This was the competition rendering. This is the final plan, so we don't build this. I will not go through everything. So this is an event center, the design school, the coffee museum. You enter from here. There's an atrium, but also this you can go through. And the people from the subway come from here. So this became a public garden. Renderings, situation. This is a famous Mall Antonelliano in Torino. So basically there's a big round point here, and the main entrance is here. But we use the existing museum, and this is a new facade attaching to the museum. So the entrance is there. So see, this is a building, and this frame we did it new, because they had no facades on this side. So it's a sequence entering the building, old and new. That's the other side overlooking the public garden, which was not public, I mean. And in Torino, you have these porticos crossing through this idea that the city wraps around you. I was very impressed. It's not just single buildings. This, even Piazza Navona, when you go, the idea that it's a concave city. So we also try to do a very urban office building facade. Actually, it's quite simple. I imposed that the windows would open, because all these that you see a higher parapet are opening windows. Even people don't open it, a psychological thing if the air conditioning breaks. Because today with all these laws, you recycle air, but I think you become a little bit claustrophobic. And all the offices look on the city, on the outside. These blades act a brise-soleil, they really reduce the heat thing. And then we found where the parking entrance would be at the parking, an old Roman basilica underneath the factory. So it was a disaster. But now we managed to change the whole project of the underground, and now kids can go see it. It's quite, I mean, it's interesting didactic thing. I mean, so it became things. The entrance booth. This is a sort of a public hall. This you go inside, so you're already badged because you know these big buildings. So you have this quite Baroque stair, I would say, after the badges. So it overlooks the public space, so here everybody can go, and here only the people who are being registered can go. And I thought that a building this big needed one common space and also some kind of, and I thought people would do it going down because you had the elevators, but people like it so much they go up. This became, and I'm happy because I don't want to go all the way to say, but when you go to Rome, you have Piazza di Spagna. It's an everyday Baroque. It's like wonders of Fontana di Trevi. Why can't we give some thrill to everyday life? It's very used. See, everyone. Okay. Then you have the shop, Lavazza shop. You know, you have big landscaped spaces. They have the recreation thing. You have the gym, so it's very good. And they have a beautiful terrace where people can do wireless. So they work here, and since the suburbs are not so kind, you have this sort of see not see. It's wrapped around. It's like a patio terrace, and it's very used to work there. I mean, then in the night you have to close it, so you have these moving benches because here is the bus stop. This is the entrance from the atrium to the museum. You have all the museum explaining all like this. Then you have the historical, because Lavazza is a very well-known brand in Italy, has also some nostalgia. This is taken from the top of the building showing the garden. We have to wait for some green to go up. We also designed the garden. So you have all these benches. And so this is used. And I really work with Lavazza. Said, see, all these American companies, they always have the cafeteria inside the building. Why don't you pay the cafeteria outside of the building and you make it to public use? So the cafeteria is here. So you have to open the umbrella to go there. I'm proud of it because this is what gives sense of urbanity. It's not a magic castle just for you. So this is a neighborhood party with little kids. We did this fountain. This is taken from the office of Lavazza, looking at this Congress Center. And I'm very happy to see these pictures because actually I said fountains are always sad when you're too deep, they had the dead birds. So I just did 10 centimeters of water and I really imagined to work this way. So it's always happy to see that. And these are the, so it's both of the city and the employees of Lavazza. And we wrap around, this is the existing building but had no facade. So we did this sort of portico, the entrance to the cafeteria, and there's a big event space here which is super successful. I'm sorry I don't have a recent picture. It's existing building with this big thing. Okay, now we designed, here was a temporary coffee place, and now Giuseppe Lavazza said, can you design a new one? But this is for the other day, I just designed it, but then it can get all colors, so it's not yet programmed. So all these can become different colors. And this is going up. And this is used for events, and now, I don't know, it works very well for events. And here you go up to the cafeteria. So the cafeteria has 3 spots, and you can eat like street food like this, and it's open to the public, so it works very well. Okay, 1, 2, 3 more to go. A competition for a building in Milano. Then the elaboration of it. This is the new Porta Nuova in Milano. It's a Cisapelli building, is the new Milano. Bosco Verticale is somewhere by Boeris over there. And I try to do a building which is Pippo Ciorra actually. He said, Cino, you always do folk rock. And then I said, I don't know if I do folk rock, but but somehow it's a building that has a very urban facade. I try to do a building which is contemporary, but it's true that I try to relate this new big intervention to the existing city. So this is the facade toward the city, and this is facade toward the green. It's very double-sided. So this is the new Milano, but you had this fabric of say 1910 workers' houses, like this fragment. So my building sort of steps down. This is still a construction site to the city. So it has a strange character. And this is also Cisapelli got the axis wrong, so we bent it. I corrected the mistake of Cisapelli, I say. Okay. So this is the urban facade. Basically, it's the same stone. This is sanded. It's not two kind of stones. It's the same stone, sanded and polished. This is copper. That's the garden. And then I also, another client asked me to do this. So actually, these 3 buildings dialogue, I'm also the author of that, but there were almost 2 conflicting clients, very strange situation. That's the garden side with the concierge. And this is the garden. And in Milano, you have this, you can go through this atrium. So it overlooks the garden. It's double-sided building. Looking from the terrace. Actually, the terraces are quite nice. The atrium is very transparent, relating to the existing fabric. And then this is the reflection from the glass, all glass Cisapelli to my building. And looking at this, it's true that am I becoming too decorative? My wife says, Cino, when you were young, you were more male. Now your testosterone goes down, a little bit you're effeminated. And say I'm discovering, my female side, and I'm becoming more and more like punto croce, whatever. But I'm joking. But here I try to do big loggias. This is bedroom facades like this. But also, it's true that some kind of the facades become abstract as you go away. So in a facade, you both represent life and you screen the single life. That's the other building, and I'm really happy because in the master plan there was just a big slab, and the sun. This is south, so it would cast shadow. So I managed to convince the city to break it in 2, so to let some sunshine in, and it has a common atrium. So basically 2 towers. Otherwise, all these will be north-faced buildings, so the sun goes around like that. So it's a very different typology. So you see, that's the buildings right next to it. Rendering, reality. I don't have very nice pictures. I like these images where the buildings sort of camouflage a bit in the existing city. This is made out of 2-color bricks. Actually, it was more contrasted, but the client who said, no, I'm afraid it gets too dark, so you don't see. You have these stripes, these brick stripes. This is the atrium, unfinished atriums. And that's the view through one building, the other building to Cisapelli, these sort of casual views of the city. Almost done. This I will almost jump. There social housing and free market housing in Bologna in a big master plan in the end was never been completely realized. So this is free market and this is social. I like the fact that they're close together, they're not different quarter. They have very different construction prices. So this could afford the bricks, and this has only plaster because it's cheaper. This brick and metal. The courtyard. This on the inside is like you pulled out. On the outside you just have this flush, and then you can have balconies on the inside of the courtyard. So this is looking from the rich people's courtyard to the not so rich people, but you sort of continuity. And this is the other way around. We all green. So you do have 2 plots, but we try to give some kind of sequence here. So even the cheap houses, it really has details. We use a little bit of colors to give some dignity to it. So this is free market and this is social houses. Almost done. Okay, acknowledge the importance of public space. One quick neighborhood park in a total Sandonized within the Veneto, and this is Google. So it was really in the middle of the suburb. It was a new intervention, and actually was just a cutout. And in San Donato, you have the Po River who flows out. So we use this sort of dams. The dam motif, which is because they do it for the river. We did this sort of fountain going down and making a bit of a lake. Some kind of sitting places. We have to wait for this to grow very tall. I mean, the gardener has to, you know, talking about time, really a gardener teach you how to deal with time. You will not see things until 3, 4, 5 years, a garden. So maybe the gardener is a metaphor who's patient enough. This is the children game, you know, like this. But then also in the night, you know, we put some drugs here, and so all the toxic people, you know, the heroin people go, and then the police comes, it's like a trap. So in the day, the moms can watch the children without running around. They can gossip here, you know, the children play safe. And in the night, it's a trap for the police, for the drug dealers. Like the lobsters, you have like that. When this was the day we tested the light, and they said, Cino, Zucchi, you want to go up to take a picture? I said, okay. And then it was not yet used, but all the neighborhood say, wow, look at the new park, let's go to the fountain. So it was like an invasion of the neighborhood, and I was very happy because they did not really expect this. I mean, it's like a gift. A gift is something unexpected, but not a gadget. Then you can use it, okay? So, can you have a little bit suburban romanticism? Okay. So, last but not least, 2 last projects. One is the Portello. This was the Alfa Romeo factory in Milano. Very big factory. We got to do this area. I will not tell the whole story. All this was a master plan by Gino Valle, and we had to do this. Is social housing, this and this. The office building for this commercial center and free market housing. The diagonal was traced by Gino Valle, so we did a sub-master plan in a bigger master plan. We did quite dense housing, and again, this is social housing, so with very low construction prices. And again, the idea, there's a phrase by Peter Smithson, the idea of being someone living somewhere. The idea that you live on the 6th floor and is different from the 7th floor. Is this just decoration, maybe? You know, you play a little bit with the parapets, like this. When it gets too much, I don't know. Sometimes, for example, when I build this building, I say, am I totally stupid? I mean, why use this stone, these white stones, you know? But then they break the corner. I remember the same building without these, and they look really blocky because there's a structure here, okay? That's the office building from the inside, and this is a free market houses. This is actually more precious, but I like more. This is the social housing with some kind of porticos on the bottom. Cino, hey Cino, everything very nice, but we don't know where to hang our clothes. I don't know. And this is a real Romanesque from Milano, but this is a neo-Romanesque from 18th century. So this motif of brick and stone, white stone, is quite common in Milano. That's the Campidoglio Sant'Ambrogio, the oldest church, and this is a Cacciadominioni house. And in the end, I noticed I copied the roof, but I was not conscious of it. And this is a picture of me. This is Cino, this is Cacciadominioni, and he said, al mio baby Cino, so I can tell he went to bed with my mother, and I'm his illegitimate son. You know, the same. And then, like 5 years ago, he was like almost 100 years old. He called me up and said, Cino Zucchi, you never call me up. You never come visit. I said, okay, I'll come visit Cacciadominioni. I'm not so friend with him, I mean, like that. Then he said, oh, you young architects. I'm going 64, so it's nice to be called young at 64 years old. No, oh, okay, I follow you. Then, yeah, you copied me a bit there, you know, but you are good architect, young architect, but, you know, let me tell you, you young architects, you don't know anything about plan. I am a plan maker. I do slaloms with plans. And then he took from a magazine, he photocopied my building, he used the white corrector, and then he made a lecture, say, see, Cino Zucchi, if you put the door 45 degrees, okay, you lose a little bit this, but you can enter there. So this is a correction by Cacciadominioni in my building. I didn't there, it was constructed. And then I found this phrase. Do we have to be so original? But what I really care about Portello again is the public space. It was a very problematic neighborhood, and I'm happy that the public space is well used, even it has no commercial spaces. Okay. Then, last but not least, I think I am known abroad because of this project. It was a dismissed industrial area. This is a Junghans watch. It was a German factory. Actually, it's designed by Max Bill, Junghans, and it was in Venice. So nobody knows Venice. It was also an industrial town. And it was in a backstreet of Venice. The existing situation had this very big factory. This was a school. And all this, except from the school, to the children, you could get to the bridge and go to the school. All this was totally private. I had the keys of this place. And it was there, it was the Zimis factory, so the existing situation. So this was the garden of the school, but was a dead end. And also here it was a dead end. All this was private of the Junghans. Then we won this competition. We opened up a canal here. And then so we did a master plan. It's a very long story, again, because political stories in Italy are incredibly complicated, but also I designed the black building. So this is Google. So this is a new canal we built. That you recognize this existing building. So all this is existing, this is existing. It's a patchwork of new building and existing buildings. That's an old industrial building we reform. So some of them are heavy renovation of industrial building. That's it. And we cut, this is the school. This was a building who was rotten, so we had to be demolished. So we designed this instead. But the idea that a little bit you squint your eye and you don't see it almost, it's almost camouflage again. That, for example, that's an existing building. I didn't do the whole project. The client was very, very bad. So if I said, an architect could say, I want a Nicole Kidman and I have my sister. I want to shoot in Patagonia and Sierra. If I tell you a sign what would have been here, I will not tell you because it's stupid. That's the way you do it. So we don't own our means of production. So what it is, it is. You do your best. That's a canal we cut. The canal. It's not so easy to build in Venice because you really shake. So I try to be contemporary. But, for example, here we reused the piles. Half of the buildings use the wooden piles of the existing building. So this was an existing, let's say, wall, and this is a new one. So it's really built on that. That's actually the back of Palladio. We are on the Giudecca Island, which is on the other side of the big canal of Venice. And this was the existing factory with a chimney like that. Okay? So we designed this house. The situation was a dead end, so we opened it up and we cut a path through here, but we left the chimney. This is social housing, so it's built for 1,000 euros a square meter. We left the chimney. And this is the cut we did to go to the Laguna. It's a cut in the existing building. And the courtyard with the chimney. And actually this building has only 3 kinds of windows. These are bathroom and kitchens. You can recognize the kitchens because they have 9 holes, this bathroom, the bedrooms and the living rooms. And it was the closest things, even we have building regulation. Today you cannot do this anymore. So we tried to do what was closed but obey to contemporary regulation. In this case you have place to hang your clothes. How to do a house in Venice? Take a sheet of butcher paper, put on the record player the disc Tutti morimmo a stento. This is a folk singer from Milano. You think of your first love and you cry a bit, and you draw the windows where the teardrops have fallen, and that's it. It's quite easy. Did we try to do Mondrian or picturesque? I yet don't know. We tried. I remember my client, the night we had to do the building permission, he called me up 10 o'clock in the night and he said, Cino Zucchi, tomorrow you're gonna present your first building permission. Pray your God that you will go through, because we put a lot of money in these projects, and for your fucking modern architecture, we don't want to lose. Why don't you do things in style like that? They really want to do typologically things too, but in style. It was hard for me to convince them. Actually, it's nice because in Venice you have the roof is quite short. If you go in Florence, it's very tall. So everything here I had to justify with him in complex things. And then, okay, so this is almost. I'm saying this is Adolf Bene, 23. He says, while the functionalist looks for the maximum possible adjustment to a goal as specific as possible, the rationalist is looking for the greatest chance of compliance to the largest number of necessities. Nothing more understandable to put an emphasis of form. This is really like, form is born with the establishment of human relationships. The lonely man, isolated in the midst of nature, has no formal problem. The question of form arises together with the form. This house was built there, but this was on internet. Do you speak English? It's like a course for things. This is a painter. This is a card. It's interesting how here and there things touch a figurative thing. Each project has a sort of. I didn't do it to be Instagrammable today. You have a lot of projects who are, like some, in a way, the one in New York. What's the name? The Thomas Edderwick, things. It's you count how many times. This was just a social housing, but then it's interesting. I think we need that. So I will end up saying that we love the city. We also travel just because we like cities. In the weekends you can take EasyJet. It's not just a functional machine. And this is a sketch by Le Corbusier representing just a big net of highways. But this is a beautiful representation. Central Park are the eyes, right side, the city center is there. The ABBA are in Sweden. The Bronx is here. Let's see here, Harbor. You have some. I like this image because I used to work in Utrecht, and I took my Vespa, went to Linate Airport, fly to Schiphol. Schiphol, I went to Utrecht with a train, took another train, go back, and in the evening I was there eating. My wife, she's a very good cook with risotto, with things. So in a way, can we feel Europe as like a big city? I love this image because I feel, in a way, comfortable with that. So I thank you for your attention and patience. Almost.